Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Guys, I've got to share this because I've heard this story more than once now. Guys don't feel great, low energy, putting on weight, just feels off. But he keeps brushing it off. He doesn't want to go to the doctor, and he doesn't want to deal with it. Finally, someone in his life, wife, girlfriend, basically says, just go get checked. He ends up at Games Day Men Health in Solon, and within the very first visit, they run labs right there and actually show him what's going on. Low testosterone, metabolism slowing down, real fixable things. And what I hear over and over from this is, I wish I had done it sooner. They help with testosterone, weight loss, and even ED, but it all starts with just understanding your T numbers. So go check them out at Game Day Men's Health Solon. Mike, you want to set up the stop for us?
Yeah, Browns OTA day 2 today. Today's practice is open to the media, so tomorrow we'll be able to discuss some of the things we saw from the only open available OTA this week. They have 2 more open media availability OTAs in the next 2 weeks. It's 1 per week each Wednesday. So we'll get some insight into the quarterback battle. Who's getting more first-team reps? How do they look? We'll get all that later today. But for now, we have to discuss the comments from Shedeur McCoy, who was on his podcast, the Speakeasy Talk Easy podcast, about what he's hearing from players on the Browns about the Browns quarterback battle. Let's take a listen.
You know, I got a lot of sources and connections over there. Players, you know what I'm saying? They say Deshaun Watson good over there. Ooh. I didn't believe it, though. I'm like, man, he been so bad. but they say, bro, he rolling right now. You know, I think with the new offense, right, new coach over there, things looking different for him. I want Shedeur to play because he's younger, he's fresher. Let's see what he has to offer. Yeah. We seen what Deshaun looked like when he left the Texans, but they say he's looking good. They say this year he will look a lot better. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but they saying and he's going to start. And if everybody in the chat, y'all want to bet, make some money, I told y'all first, Deshaun Watson's going to start.
That was Shedeur McCoy, former NFL player. Certainly talks to some other guys around the NFL. Up until this point, I don't think we'd heard a former NFL player say so definitively that he's heard from people, particularly on the Browns, that Deshaun is going to be the starter. We've heard from reporters. We've heard from outside sources. This was a player who says he spoke to former players. Dustin, we're going to see the guys at OTAs today. When you combine what Shady said, some of the reporting, what we'll see today on the field at practice, how do you take and parse what McCoy said versus what we've heard elsewhere with what we're going to learn in terms of the latest in the Browns quarterback?
I don't know if Shedeur McCoy follows Cleveland media at all, but people have been talking about this being the case for the last couple of months. Mm-hmm. Like, we've been prepared for this moment where Deshaun Watson is most likely going to be the starter come week 1. Look at the quarterback room, guys. Shedeur Sanders, second-year player. Deshaun Watson, who's been a disaster, but was a former, damn near MVP. He didn't win an MVP, did he? But he was up for it. He threw for 5,000 yards and a zillion touchdowns. Gabriel, second-year player. Taylor Green, 6th-round pick, rookie. So you look at that room, it's not hard to say you got a new head coach who's trying to run a new offense with the quarterback that he would like to have some success with, who knows how to be in an NFL offense, and he has Deshaun Watson there. I don't think it's crazy to think that he's going to start. Like, Shedeur McCoy's acting like it's breaking news. I mean, we're kind of all prepared for it.
Yeah, for me, the question is, do you trust Shedeur McCoy? Yeah. I don't, to be honest with you.
No, but I trust that he talks to guys in the locker room.
Just let me break it down.
I'm sorry.
I don't. I do think he talked to people in the locker room. What I have publicly said, like I got sources inside the locker room, probably not. Here's what I'm on, and I've said the same thing every time I've been on this panel. Maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm crazy. I believe in Todd Monken until I am given reason not to believe in Todd Monken. And so for me, I'm operating with a sense of blind faith and, okay, I'm going to take your word for it until you show me that I shouldn't. And when you show me that I shouldn't take your word for it, then I'll come out here and I'll be a little bit more critical than what I am. But everything that Todd Monken has told us since he has spoke at the NFL Combine to now was that this was an open competition and that this thing would play itself out. He said nobody had anything on film that gives anybody a leg up on anybody. And when it came to Deshaun Watson in particular, I do remember him saying when he was asked about, have you watched any old film on Deshaun? He said, for what? I don't know what they were running. I don't know what their schemes was. It would kind of be disingenuous to do that. Basically, I took the long way to say, like, until I hear from Todd Monken on who the starting quarterback is, then I'm going to take everything I hear about reporting and everything else with a grain of salt. This is my 5th year doing this, and I'm trying not to do the same things that I've done in the past. We'll take every single thing that's written and said and run with it. I know as a lifelong fan of this team, I can think of being a young adult and doing the same thing, operating in the same mindset. But in this situation, it's a little different for me because this is the first time we've had a new coach in a long period of time, and at least since I've been in this position. So I can't sit up here, and I know for a fact, I done heard Ty say on numerous occasions, I'll let you know. It'll play itself out. You'll hear it from me and then run with every single thing that comes out like it's the gospel. When he's told me, he'll let us know.
Yeah, I don't think anything's set in stone by any means.
I don't either.
Even when Mary Kay put out that first report that Watson was the front runner or had the lead, however she phrased it, that doesn't mean he had won the starting job. I genuinely believe that Todd Monken has not made a decision on who will be the quarterback come week 1 in September. There's a lot of football to go. We saw Kenny Pickett got most of the QB1 reps in camp and then never played an actual snap for the Browns because so many things can change between now and when actual football begins in September. I do think it's kind of interesting, though, or at least worth noting, that it's now Shedeur McCoy. Zach Jackson and Jason have been telling us for months the Browns are pushing Deshaun Watson. They're pushing the narrative that he's back. We had Jeremy Fowler earlier this week put out, not in the article with Daniel Oyefusi, but in the SportsCenter hit, saying that Monken and Watson had hit it off. In the past, we've seen Schefter, we've seen Breer. Everything that's come out of Berea in terms of the talk, nothing definitive, but the talk has been in Deshaun's favor. Has been the wind of Deshaun. And you would think if it wasn't, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if there's enough smoke, there's probably a little bit of fire. And it's too early to say he's the winner. And once again, I've been on this program 10 times. I'll be on 10 more times saying I'd much rather see Shedeur play than Deshaun Watson. But if everyone is saying the same thing, it's probably coming. It's either one of two options. Either everyone's making it up, which I have a hard time believing, or somebody's telling them that. And I think it's way more believable that it's actually coming from Berea than all these different sources and different outlets just making it up.
I kind of look at it like same game, different players. And what I mean by that is, if we weren't talking Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, I can point to plenty seasons in the past to where at this point in time in the Browns offseason, it's been reports, it's been media outlets saying rumor this, report that. When it was Johnny Manziel, when it was Baker versus who was Tyrod, right?
Yeah.
Brian Hoyer versus Brandon Whedon, or
Hoyer versus Manziel.
Hoyer versus Manziel. I've been in this city too long, and I've seen this story too many times. And even early on in this career, I have fallen victim, quite honestly, to just really soaking up everything that's been done, written, or said, whatever the case may be. And for me, I said this the last time me and you was on the panel. I'm just going to rock with what Todd Monken said until further notice.
You know what's sad about what you just said? Teams that have quarterbacks don't have these discussions.
No.
The fact that you've been through so many of these.
As a fan,
as a media member, as a father.
Is this one of those to where it's like...
The Browns, the Browns haven't had that guy to where we don't have to have these conversations.
I can remember so much that was written last year about how this thing looked to have going just for it to go a totally different direction by the time we got to week 1 of the season. And it's just like, man, I'm not about to continue to do the same thing, as I've done every year as a professional, as I've done most of the time as a fan, where this is a unique situation, at least for me. This is the first time I've been in this business to where we got a brand new head coach. And so, by all accounts, by the people that I talk to who actually know Todd Monken, he's a straight shooter. So if this dude done shot it straight on every program he'd have been on and every time he done talked to the media, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're going to continue to do so. Now, if it turns out that's not the case, then I'll become more critical of it. But the man that's showing us he ain't got no reason to lie to us. He ain't afraid to tell us what he really feel about whatever the case may be. So I'm just going to stay right there with it.
Listen, a guy's 60 years old, first-time head coach, offensive coordinator, coming to Cleveland. If you want me to believe that this guy's not going to put the best guy on the field, who he thinks gives him the best chance to win football games each and every Sunday, you're out of your mind.
Facts.
Like, he sees it every day. If Deshaun Watson starts week 1, he's by far the best quarterback for that room Because you would think if it was close, you play the young kid.
But that's what you want Browns fans to like think. And I put a tweet out about that yesterday. Like
Your responses to that tweet were crazy.
But if you're a fan of the Cleveland Browns, this is what you should want, right? I think that because we are in the media and we do this job, and fans kind of have, made their stance, there's going to be division when it comes to that. However, if you are a fan of this football team, and if Todd Monken is putting the best player out there that helps you win, that should be the only thing that matters to you.
Listen, there are fans out there, and you know who you are. You know who you are. You want the team to win, but you also want to win the debate about who your quarterback. You want your quarterback to be the guy. And if your quarterback's not the guy, then in the back of your mind, you secretly kind of root against the team.
Yeah.
There are fans like that. 100%. You know who you are.
That's messed up, though.
It is messed up.
Question for you, Dustin. So Monken has said on the record he wants to have an idea of who his starter is going to be by training camp. Early in training camp, because then he wants to give those guys the majority of the reps, preparing for the preseason, preparing for the regular season. Can you make, for a new head coach who doesn't have a background with either of these guys, is it possible to make that determination in OTAs and in classroom sessions and in video sessions before these guys are actually out on a practice field for enough practice? Because they're only going to get 10 OTAs, right? Is 10 OTAs enough to make a determination? Is 5, or do you have to get into training camp where you get more reps to actually be able to determine that?
It's a difficult question to answer because I'm not in the room, and I don't know what these players' abilities are and their capabilities are in the the film room and then taken to the field. But I'd say this much: you've got 3 essentially rookies in that room and 1 guy who's a longtime veteran who's played at a high level in this league. I think to me, if I'm the coach, it would be very apparent how much further ahead Deshaun is with his capabilities to understand an offense, to regurgitate it, to get his teammates to believe, and also be able to go out there on the field, on the practice field, and get the job done and execute. So, yeah, I would say it would be fairly easy, probably with this group specifically. Now you take Watson out of the mix, and you just have those 3 rookies essentially. I say rookies because they both played 6-7 games last year. I'm talking about Gabriel and Sanders. So. It would typically be hard if the guys were more on an even playing field, but they're not, because you got 1 guy in the room that's unlike the other dudes.
I think that's part of the reason everyone, when we say we want to see a true competition, we want to see it played on the field. But I do think, and I don't know for sure, I do think it's not impossible to have a good idea of who's going to put you in a better position before you get on the field, if you can determine some of that stuff that we'll never get access to. The coaches do. We don't. And
you also have the ability to talk to some of the other players on the team, see how the players interact. Kind of like you're the head coach now. You're not the OC. So you can kind of stand back and you can watch around the field, and you can see what players go up to who, and you're taking notes. You're like, okay, these guys are having a conversation. They went up to Watson after this play. How those guys respond to certain players, and those all factor into making that decision.
I was going to add on to what Dustin said. I just went back and found a quote from Todd about Deshaun Watson, when he said, anytime you have a player that at one time has exhibited the skill set at an elite level, I think you're always going to give them the benefit of the doubt that somehow we might be able to get that out of him again. And I think that's how you should look at every player.
Yeah. Fair.
There you go.
Open in some regards, maybe not as open as others. We do have OTAs today, and I want to have a PSA to everybody. Can we all agree to this as us 3?
I think I know where we're going here.
Whether Deshaun Watson's getting the first reps in a lot of the drills, whether it's Shedeur, whether it's Dylan, whether it's Talon, this is OTA number 2 of 10 before training camp. Do not overreact to any of it.
Regardless of what you see on social media.
Can we agree to that?
Listen.
Yes.
Do not overreact to any of it.
I'm still getting over my boy not being here. So, if I had it my way, if it was all about my favorite player.
We're still talking about Emerson?
That's my point. If it was all about, your favorite player always being on the team and winning the job.
In your house like Joe Boo or something?
No, man, I don't. It's just
he was an awesome dude.
He was just one of those dudes to where no, I know you is. He was just one of those dudes to where, like, a player that is not a mainstay player that you've seen him put in the work.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I cheer for MJ. Michael Woods, for a fact, was another dude. Like, I was just hoping that he stayed healthy enough to show what he can do. Back in the day when Josh Cribbs, he was a parent, but undrafted cat. And when we seen him in preseason, every Browns fan hey, that dude gonna be special. So sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But I think that only for me sometimes, because I see the back and forth on social media. Like, I've made myself very clear. I've been a fan of Shedeur Sanders' game for a long period of time. But if you know me, if you know Earl, the dude that's from
Browns
Cleveland,
fan,
Ohio,
first and
I
foremost.
cheer for my hometown teams before I cheer for any player. And if it was ever that serious for me, I would have stopped cheering for the Indians when Frankie left. I would have stopped cheering for the Browns a long time ago.
Deshaun was your
When
favorite dude coming out of college.
Deshaun was my favorite dude coming out of college. When we didn't take a quarterback in 2016, it was like, all right, cool. Deshaun Watson will be one of the quarterbacks you can take in 2017. That didn't work out. I like Baker. All right, cool. Take Baker. So it is
Name
what
on
it
the
is.
front of the jersey.
That's what
or
mattered
the
to
name on
me.
the back.